if you believe, as I believe, and I feel it just resonates with me in terms of how I think the world works, or how I see it working, that it's optimum, if you like. Again, that's a judgment, but that's what I'm saying. There's this element, and I think this is similar to your example. Is it all or nothing, or is there something in between, right? So, for example, I mean, if I walk across the road and I'm hit by a bike or something like that, right? Do I say, okay, that wasn't my fault, the bike knocked me over, etc., etc.? You know what I'm saying? I know fault is the wrong word here, but it's like, it seems to me, if you create your own reality, you create everything. And the same, it seems to me, with let it be, it must be the same as well. Now, you still have a choice, of course. In your example, if there's someone going to jump in the river, or whatever the example was.
They were already in the river.
Well, they're already in the river. You could say to them, would you like some help? I know that sounds crazy.
Of course I knew you, that's why I'm waving at you.
Well, not necessarily, but I mean, there is an element here, which I think there is an assumption, you see, in your example. And that assumption is that
they're calling for help.
That A, they're calling for help, exactly, and B, that there is no bigger picture involved here, which may mean that, let's say at a high example, that they've actually, created that reality to go through an experience that they need to go to. Now, they may have also created it for the reason to enable me or you, a passerby, to come along and jump in and save them.
Which is why...
But one doesn't preclude the other.
That sort of philosophical approach, which is analysing things through, which is by karma, actually, is not how you must ever tackle decision-making in the moment.
Oh yes, okay, cool. Okay.
Because
so how?
You could sit and debate with yourself and probably 20 other sages and philosophers about the bigger picture. No, that's the problem. It really it starts to become.
That wouldn't.
So therefore, what we are called on to do is, rather than gauge how we act in the moment by karma, we gauge it on dharma.
Right.
Which is, I am here. A person in need there, they are asking help, my heart should respond. In whatever way I can.
That sounds too mental. That's not the heart responding.
No, it's not mental. It's,
If you use the word should, I don't think the heart would say I should respond. The heart would instinctively just
it would want to do it. It would want to do it.
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah.
Well, I think actually there's two elements.
Well, that for me.
Dharma is actually for those... It supports the heart, actually. The heart, I think a soft-hearted person would automatically want to do it. If you see someone sad, or your heart goes out to them, and you kind of feel, I'd like to kind of offer something, some solace, some comfort, some help.
Yeah,
that's just natural, right? But sometimes in social situations, it may not be someone we know, or may not even like, actually. Therefore, sometimes there does have to be the mental kind of thing. Well, what should I do? And if we're ever having to decide something on what should we do, then we should decide it on dharma, because that dharma will say, well, look, are you a swimmer? Yes. Therefore, you have the ability to serve someone using that skill. That's dharma. You have a personal skill which you can put into the service of someone else. And if the time and moment is calling for you, then you should act now in that regard. And
that still presupposes, though, that the person needs help and that you're the person to help.
Well, I mean, it may well be if there was three of you there, which is,
No, let's assume there's just one, because I think this is important to get a distinction here.
Then I think that if the person is there and they're very obviously seem to be calling for your help, then, and you're the only person, then yes, you have to think, I'm being called on this. Even if my heart isn't saying anything, even if I'm a cold-blooded bastard, the dharmic thing should be. I should be able to analyze and think, I don't think I can get out of this one. I think that there's a person in need. I'm the person with the ability to help. Got to do it.
Okay, well, I'm certainly with you in terms of no analysis required, but I think there are two questions in my mind. Dharma, it seems to me, hang on a second, Dharma, it seems to me, could be based or at least the raison d'etre for it could be based on, if you like, how society teaches us to behave in a certain situation, such as you say, someone's in the river, they can't swim, or it looks as if they can't swim, so you jump in and try and save them, because that's what a quote-unquote, hang on a second, good citizen, let's say, would do. I mean, I'm making this up, but just to give the example. Now, what is the distinction between that and what I would see as if you like, a more aligned reality, which is going back to what I said earlier in terms of how do you know that person wants help, needs help, or that his own dharma, if you like, his own destiny is to have help. Now, do you trust? Does that come back to the heart? If I'm coming along, do I say, well, unless it comes from my heart, I'm going to walk on by, rather than society thinks I should jump in and save him because to be a good citizen.
It's not a question of society, because dharma isn't to align you with culture. Dharma is to align you with the mood, the soft-heartedness, the pure love that exists in the heart.
So that's a heart space.
Ultimate. No, right. It's to align you with that.
What if you're not already aligned? How would you know?
Then you can align yourself with dharma, which at least aligns you with the mood of someone who has a pure heart.
Right.
We might be thinking that I'm not going to say that bastard. He did me out of this. And, it'd be that might be our attitude.
Yeah.
But the dharma will be kind of calculation will be ticking on within us, and it'll be saying, well, actually, you really should calculate it a different way. And at least that calculation puts us in tune or in sync with a higher kind of soft-hearted, pure vision, of love. And therefore, the idea is that dharma itself isn't an act of love. Acting out of dharma isn't out of love. It's a sort of duty, yes, but it's not a temporary social duty. There are some dharmas which are meant to, which are low level, which will align you with cultural norms. But really the idea is that the deeper the dharma becomes, the more it aligns you with the spiritual vision and pure love. And those are the dharmas that are worth something. And do you know what the Bhagavad Gita says? The final instruction from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Prijajya. Give up all your dharmas. Give them all up. Because they're probably aligned with something that is less than pure devotion. And if you can give them up, then they weren't the pure devotion. But when you give it up, then you're left with only that which you're left with, which is the dharma of bhakti, the dharma of pure love. And that you can't give up. Because all the others you can give up. And they may be great, they take you on the stage, they may help align you at different parts, but ultimately they all disappear when you're purely situated in the dharma of the heart.
So unless you're acting out of pure love,
it's better to act out of what dharma calls me.
which you said before was a sort of obligation, but not a society's obligation, or a societal obligation.
Well, there are some societal dharmas, but there's also, they can be linked with all sorts of things. But ultimately, higher dharmas link you with living in love.
Interesting dilemma, isn't it? Because, your example sounds fairly benign, but if you see someone jumping from a bridge, right, a high bridge over a river, over an ocean, and literally jumping from the balustrade over, are you likely, with the same dharma and the same compassion, to jump in, and try and save that person?
Not if it's going to end up, that there's two of you drowned.
Well, that's the question, you see. I mean, how do you know?
You don't know, but you can make a rough kind of risk assessment.
Okay.
So
your act of love will depend on a risk assessment then?
Yeah. I mean, if it was my daughter... if my daughter jumped off a bridge, I'd jump off after her.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Because the heart overrules the risk assessment.
Right.
And if that's the only way that there is any fraction of a chance, I would do that.
Yeah.
But
What if you
for a
knew
stranger, I wouldn't.
What if you?
And that may sound absolutely awful.
Okay.
And in one sense, that's not the vision of, seeing the
So
world.
it's not a general thing; it's a more specific thing then.
No, I mean, the point is that at our stage of development in love, unfortunately, we're at the stage where love tends to be a little circle around us. People we know, people we like, people who are related to us.
Oh,
And
yeah,
people-
that's not the same love that I
It's
was
not.
thinking.
I
of,
know
that
it's
you were
not.
talking about.
But the point is, that's where we're at the moment. And the question is, well, how do you learn to expand that love? Dharma allows you, because you might think, well, I'll do this bit out of that my heart would make me do this for these people. Dharma says, well, look, if that person's in need, include them as well. Now, you may do it out of a sense of duty initially, but by doing that, the heart becomes a little softer and a little bit more inclusive. And then if Dharma calls in to do something for them and to do something, then you find that suddenly your heart is willing to embrace a bigger world.